Welcome in, everyone. Yes, this is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by Circa Million and Circa Survivor. I'm Jim Coventry, along with James Koh. James and I will be analyzing overvalued and undervalued players for 2025 fantasy football drafts. James, we are going to start right out with some players that I consider undervalued, but I'd love to hear your opinion on them as well. I'm going to start out with Tetairoa McMillan of the Carolina Panthers. Love the fact he's a first-round pick. Love him as that X receiver, can line up on the line of scrimmage, take on press contact. He can win in isolated situations. But Bryce Young, 4 of his last 5 games last year. Now, week 18, all right, they had a game of 80 points where scored. He threw for 250 in that one. Ooh, wow. But in the 4 prior, he was average. And everybody thinks he's the savior. But guess what? For fantasy, he was great. He ran for 6 touchdowns in the last 6 games. That boosted his value. But in terms of a passer, honestly, teams probably saw, we're playing Bryce Young. It's a bye week. This week, there's some film on him this year. So when the film comes out, they're going to see the few things he was doing right, and they're going to take him away. He's a limited quarterback. He's got a pop gun for an arm. He's small. Can have a hard time seeing. But the other thing is, if you're not throwing for 200 yards a game, how does McMillan, Leggett, Thielen, Sanders, how do they all eat? I just think that it's not a Tet McMillan problem. I just think it's a Bryce Young problem. There will not be volume to support a high-end receiver. What say you?
No, I totally agree with you. And again, I mean, let's not act as if Xavier Leggett is a bum. I mean, this is a first-round draft pick too, right. Adam Thielen. And the funny thing is, this is what's crazy, is that they've got 2 first-round picks here in Tetairoa McMillan and Xavier Leggett. And honestly, it might be old-ass Adam Thielen who leads the team in targets, you know what I mean? So
yes, sir.
That's what's so interesting, right? That I think it's to your point that I don't think this is an offense that can sustain that many elite wide receiver production, and shoot, it might not even be enough to sustain one, right? I totally agree with you. I think we're basing this off of upside. Will Bryce Young take more shots downfield? Because I think that is an area of growth potentially for Bryce Young. Maybe they take the training wheels off and just let him kind of sort of sling it downfield just a little bit. But I do think I'm with you. Look, and what we didn't talk about too is the fact that Dave Canales, he just wants to establish the run. He's going to be stubborn about the run game too, right? Like they go add Rico Dowdle this offseason too. So it almost feels as if, okay, they're doubling down on last year's strategy, which is, okay, let's limit the number of times that Bryce Young has to drop back and throw this football. And when he does it, it's going to be in an advantageous situation. 2nd and short, maybe 3rd and short, but a situation where the defense doesn't quite know what's coming at him. And so we're going to protect Bryce Young just a little bit. Yeah, it really is funny, this narrative around Bryce Young, isn't it, Jim? That, okay, he goes from, okay, the number 1 overall pick, so there's a lot of hope and optimism. Then it goes from that to literally one of the worst quarterbacks we've ever seen on film and in the stat sheet. And then now all of a sudden Dave Canales goes in there, revamps the whole offense, and now he's the savior again. I think the truth is somewhere in the middle, man. This is I think at best a league average quarterback.
Yeah, I love that. That's great analysis on that, of course. But yeah, Canales gonna do his work. But again, we'll see what happens. Jamarcus Russell was excited for a while when Bryce Young started his first go around, thinking maybe I wasn't the worst one, and then all of a sudden maybe not anymore, because he did decent. I'll give him that. The next player I think is going to be a bit of a problem. This is a complicated one. I'm going to have to get there over a couple minutes. For the full season, Xavier Worthy is going to disappoint. Here's why. So he was drafted to be a deep threat, to clear out the middle of the field, because everybody plays their safeties really high, and Mahomes needed somebody to stretch that field. It was to open up space at the time for a younger Kelce, who's a year older now, open it up for Rashee Rice and others so they could be a multi-layered attack. Well, we saw last year Rashee Rice tears his LCL, and Xavier Worthy at the end of the season, he had to move into the Rashee Rice role. His average depth of target was 6.5 yards. Not why they drafted Worthy. It was for more like 11 yards depth of target. So in the Rice role, that role works in this offense. And Worthy was putting up 20-point PPR games down the stretch. And that's why people are drafting him as wide receiver 19. They're just saying, well, that's what he did, and that's what he's going to become. Here's the problem. As of this recording, which is Friday, August 22nd, I cannot tell you what Rashee Rice's suspension is going to be, when it's going to happen. I can't tell you any of that. But my assumption, even if it's that report, the worst case scenario, that's 10 games, then Rashee Rice is back for the fantasy playoffs. And what that means is, who is going to be in the Rashee Rice role in the fantasy playoffs? It's going to be Rashee Rice. It's not going to be Xavier Worthy. And if Worthy is playing the deep threat role during the time you need him most to win your league, Patrick Mahomes, this may have been a one-off, but last year Mahomes is one of the least efficient downfield passers. Now, that could change year to year. I'm not saying that's who he is the rest of his life. But that said, if Worthy's in a different role and you're paying wide receiver 19 cost for a role that is more like wide receiver 25 or 26, that's where I have an issue with it. Go ahead, James.
No, I think you hit a lot of the points right on the head there. I don't see Xavier Worthy, mostly because he's not a reliable man press beater, right? Like, this is a guy that gets open against zone, which is great. I mean, and listen, that's the predominant defense that we see in the NFL is going to be some version of zone. But at the end of the day, if you want to be a productive wide receiver, you got to beat man press coverage, man, period. Point blank, period. And again, if we're talking about, he's going to see some deep shots. First of all, I totally agree with you. I think people get caught. It's so crazy, right? Like, people get caught up in this is what I saw last year, so therefore this is what I am going to see this year. And every single year, football proves that to be completely and utterly untrue. Like, that is what's insane, right? There's a reason why we don't have real long-term dynasties in the NFL, is because every year seemingly it's topsy-turvy, right? So yeah, people, kind of criticizing Patrick Mahomes of, he missed Xavier Worthy on a bunch of plays and maybe he's lost it now. And I just don't buy that. I think, again, Worthy's a rookie and Patrick Mahomes was still getting used to kind of sort of that downfield throwing that he has been truly, honestly been missing over the last couple of years. Now, that being said, I do think that he's going to get back to it this year. It seems like they seem dog determined, Jim, to get this ball downfield. So I do think Xavier Worthy will have a place. It just happens to be, I think it's going to be really, really inconsistent, especially when you cannot beat man press on a consistent basis. That makes it even more difficult to get you the ball in a consistent way. So, I really didn't think about that playoff implications of that as well, where Rashee Rice is, going to be coming back for the fantasy playoffs. What does that mean for Xavier Worthy? It will become pretty, I think, up and down for Xavier Worthy after the Rice suspension is up.
100%. And I think one other thing about Worthy that people forget is they have to be careful how they use him. He's 165 pounds. And I know Devontae Smith gets used really well. I know they put him in a slot some last year, which is probably more than I thought, but he does live on the outside a lot. They can keep him isolated. It keeps him out from having linebackers, in his face all the time. But again, they did move him there some. But Worthy, I think the more you expose him, you got to be careful with that 165-pound frame because he is a slight dude. That's neither here nor there. But hey, the Circa Million and the Circa Survivor are back with a $21 million guaranteed in prizes. The Circa Million, you pick 5 games against the spread each week, 18 weeks of action, 126 ways to win, million guaranteed for the winner, $6 million overall guaranteed. Circa Survivor, 1 pick a week, no point spread. You last the longest, you win it all. At least 15 million guaranteed. Enter in Nevada, play from anywhere, 21 million guaranteed for both contests. Visit circasports.com for details. All right, I am not going to go with another busters. One player I just want to make sure we talk about as people get into their fantasy football drafts because his ADP has not changed all summer, and I want to hear what your thoughts about that as well. DJ Moore is wide receiver 21 in drafts, and I've been talking about him a lot all summer. And the thing is, 2 years ago with Justin Fields, wide receiver 6. Last year, train wreck of an offense, no offensive line protection. And then they threw him all those screens. But guess what? The defense is all packed in because they had no reason to think they weren't getting the Williams. But in that train wreck season, DJ Moore is still the wide receiver 14 at PPR. And he's wide receiver 21. Even in that situation last year, he was way better than that. I just can't understand why the fantasy community doesn't understand. DJ Moore is a legitimate superstar who has been in horrible situations year after year after year. And aside from last year's 966 yards, he's almost a lock every other year for 1,100 plus yards. That is a type of floor that is incredible. I have to expect that Ben Johnson is going to get this offense going. The offensive line is going to be better. Caleb Williams is going to have time. He's going to have defined reads. And I know that one thing Ben Johnson wants to do. He wants to get the ball in his hands of his receivers so they can run after the catch. And I've said this for years. DJ Moore is a legitimate running back with the ball in his hands. 85th percentile yards after the catch last year, with defenses focused in on him. I do not see any scenario where he goes worse than ADP. And if it works out perfectly, he could be a wide receiver 1. Where do you stand on DJ Moore?
I love DJ Moore this year. I think it's addition by subtraction by taking Keenan Allen off the football field. You mentioned the Ben Johnson factor as well. It's almost as if people aren't even giving the Ben Johnson, hiring any credit in Chicago. I'm not seeing, for example, Rome Odunze's ADP. I'm not seeing that rise. I'm not seeing DJ Moore's value rise. And so it's odd to me because unless you live under a rock, Ben Johnson is such a good offensive mind. The offense is going to be organized in a way that is so much more conducive to getting their playmakers involved early and in spaces where they can succeed, to your point. I think I agree with you. I think DJ Moore will absolutely 100% get fed targets where he can start moving, right? And it's funny because they don't really have an Amon-Ra St. Brown, right?
No.
But if can you imagine DJ Moore playing the Jameson Williams role last year? We're talking about a guy that could absolutely take off. You put DJ Moore in that Jameson Williams role where he's just running these deep overs and getting away from defenders. He's running shallow drags and everything. And we're getting him moving horizontally so that he can get up the field, but just getting away from defenders. That's where it starts getting really, really exciting for me. So, and again, DJ Moore, he's not your typical X receiver. He shouldn't be anchored to the X. I think he can play X, but he's best utilized when he's used in the slot, in the flanker, outside on the X. But just get this guy moving around, man, and truly turn him into a weapon. I think Ben Johnson is smart enough to know that, and I do think that they're going to get him involved. But, Jim, can I just say one thing here, man? I like what Chicago did this offseason. I really do. Okay, they go at Joe Thuney, they go Jonah Jackson, they go draft an offensive lineman in the second round. Okay, so they tried to address the offensive line, and I like it. It's good, but what is it about Ryan Poles that he cannot stay away from tight ends? What is going on? Cole Kmet has been on this team. He's been a productive member of this football team for a while. And then what do they do last year? They need offensive linemen. Instead of that, no, they're going to go sign Gerald Everett. They had a very good run game in 2023. They did not need running backs. You know what they do? They go and get running backs. What are we doing out here? Okay, so in 2024, they spend money and draft capital on tight ends and running backs. They got burned. What do they then turn around and do in 2025? They spend money and draft capital on tight ends and running backs and wide receivers. Why are we taking Luther Burden in the second round? I shouldn't say we. I'm not a Chicago Bears fan. I'm just saying this is what I want to say. You spend a premium draft pick on Colston Loveland. Again, a tight end. I don't care how good you think this guy's going to be. You have so many team needs. You have Cole Kmet already. What are we doing out here? Why are we spending this draft capital on Colston Loveland and Luther Burden in the first 2 rounds? That's crazy to me. I don't understand what the Chicago Bears were thinking. Go shore up that defense. Go shore up that offensive line. Don't take these positions where you already have an overabundance and a luxury of talent, man. I just had to get that off my chest because they keep doing it for years on end and they just keep messing it up. I don't get it.
And you use the word luxury. This is a team that doesn't have the luxury to use luxury picks. And they're making luxury picks. They need infrastructure picks. Yes. And that's not what the Bears have done. Look, I hope this all works out, and I'm very excited to see how it goes. But like you said, sometimes the method to get there doesn't make a whole lot of sense. All right, with that, we are going to have the Sleeper King talk about some of his sleepers when we return from this short break. All right, sleepers, James. We are going to start out with Travis Etienne of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going as the running back 31. Let's hear what you got on Travis Etienne.
Well, this is the thing. It's all about price and cost, right? Travis Etienne was a huge bust last year. I mean, he saw a 40% reduction in total yards and just 2 touchdowns. Just 2 touchdowns. That is crazy for a starting running back there in Travis Etienne. And he also had less than 50% running back opportunity last year. I think he ranked outside the top 25. I know he did. I think he was 28 or 29 in terms of total running back opportunity share there in Jacksonville as they worked in a bunch of other running backs. So obviously he's got some room for growth in terms of overall volume. And man, I got to be honest with you. So I did the charting on both Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. And here's the real deal. Travis Etienne is a highly specialized player, right? Is he the best? No, he's not. He's not a full field scheme independent player is what I call some of these guys. That's not him. That's not Travis Etienne. But what he was good at, Jim, he was great on outside zone. So if you get this guy on the edge and running in a zone run scheme, that is where this guy succeeds. He's really good at finding cutback lanes, and honestly, that's probably his greatest strength, probably his greatest weapon. I think he looks for the cutback a little too often, right? And that ended up leading to a lot of run stuffs. But he's got that one cut ability, and he can certainly get to the outside. Man, when you start thinking about what Liam Cohen might do there, Tampa Bay had the 8th highest outside run rate in the NFL last year. And it was a mixed bag, a league average when we're talking about man gap versus zone. But Liam Cohen does have all that connective tissue with Sean McVay. And we know Sean McVay just loves running it out of zone. So I do wonder if Liam Cohen runs his own team, will he utilize zone running just a little bit more? I think he will. And in that case, I think Travis Etienne is a great fit for them. Now, it could be Bashal Tutin, but Jim, you know who it's not going to be? It is not, in my opinion, it is not going to be Tank Bigsby. I charted this guy, man, and I was just blown away by how poor some of his numbers were. And in particular, he was absolutely atrocious. I mean, a huge liability in pass pro. I could not believe how bad he was on a down-by-down basis and yet still getting out there. He was getting his quarterback killed. I mean, honestly, the whiffs on some of these pass pro reps was so atrocious. Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones were just getting absolutely obliterated in the backfield. And I cannot imagine the coaching staff looking at that and saying, you know what, we got to get this guy on the football field. I cannot see it. I don't think he brings enough as a pass catcher. He had some of the worst drops I saw on film last year as well. I think Tank Bigsby will be a short yardage first and second down thumper, and that is just about it.
Now, with Travis Etienne, one thing that's really important is Liam Cohen designed one incredible screen game in Tampa. Diversified screen game.
Yes.
And there is nobody on that roster built for that like Travis Etienne. And to think that Travis Etienne could be weaponized again as he was a few years ago as a pass catcher. Remember, those volume and king in fantasy football from the passing game. You're getting targets. Oh my gosh, just roll up the pinball point. So that's an addition to what you said. Now, do we have any concern about the running game because of the offensive line? In Tampa, that running game worked really well. That line was good. Is there any concern? I still think Etienne's going to smash ADP, but what are your thoughts on that line?
No, the line is obviously a problem. And to be honest with you, what note did I write down here? He had if I'm not mistaken, I think he had the most unblocked defenders on runs that I charted in the NFL. So we're talking about a guy that was constantly seeing unblocked defenders get into the backfield and disrupt his running lanes, right? So that part of it is very problematic. But again, I go back to, I just think that schematically, Jim, it was just a flawed run game, period. I don't think that they coach these guys up enough to truly recognize, okay, when we get to zone, or even if we get to man gap, what's your assignment here? It seemed like there just was too many free rushers, and this is in pass pro too, but just there were too many free rushers getting into the backfield. And to me, that's not just a Trevor Lawrence quarterback, recognition thing. That's a coaching problem. Right? Like they've got to coach that. I think they can coach the O-line a lot better and coach them up. And so, yeah, is it a concern? 100% for sure. But if we just take away some of these unblocked defenders getting into the backfield, I think Travis Etienne, who, oh, by the way, had back-to-back 1,400 scrimmage yard seasons
right?
to open his career. This guy's not trash. He's not garbage. And I get it. People in the chat are already like, nah, I'm not drafting Etienne. I get it. Outside the RB 30 range. He's going outside the top 30 running backs. I think you're getting tremendous value.
Yeah, and you're right. The coaching has been horrible in Jacksonville for a while. Now, one other thing you're talking about, getting the line better. A lot of motion that the coach will use, Liam Cohen. That's going to help getting a little, little doubt in the mind of linebackers, just creating confusion. And that'll also give a little bit of a boost to the running game as well. So, yeah, like you, I do think Travis Etienne is able to beat that ADP. All right, we're going to another player that's steaming up the draft boards by the day. Emeka Egbuka is now the wide receiver 31. We got news from Adam Schefter that although Chris Godwin will be on the 53-man roster, they don't expect him to start practicing until week 2. They're expecting him to hit the field sometime in October. Jalen McMillan, it sounds like the best case scenario is week 9 for him with the shoulder. So all of a sudden, it seemed they had an embarrassment of riches at wide receiver. Well, it's Mike Evans and Emeka Egbuka. Talk about Egbuka.
I mean, that's what it is. It just comes down to opportunity. When Tampa Bay first made this pick, I hated it because I love Emeka Egbuka, the player. I think, I know that they utilize him primarily out of the slot in Ohio State, but I saw enough traits where I'm saying to myself, man, this is not a slot-only player. This guy can play outside. He can be a flanker for whatever NFL team drafts him. I think he's got the athleticism. It's funny. I think he's really similar to DJ Moore. I think he's really similar to DJ Moore. You get this guy moving horizontally across the football field, and he's just great after the catch, man. I do think he has to develop just a little bit as a man press beater, but he has the athletic tools to make that happen. Right. And everything that you've ever read about Emeka Egbuka is that this guy works his ass off. Right. So I really like this fit there in Tampa Bay. If he is the number 2 opposite of Mike Evans, it's such a good fit. I talked to Deepak Chona, an injury analyst, an orthopedic surgeon, injury analyst, and he doesn't really anticipate Chris Godwin being ready for maybe not being totally ready for anywhere beyond 8 to 10 weeks. Right. So we're talking, you're getting at least 6 weeks of just unfettered target share for Emeka Egbuka. And when you're talking about where he is going right now, Jim, shoot, man, he's going to obviously crush ADP. And when you're taking him as a sleeper and you can just plug and play this guy for the first 6 weeks of the season, you're sleeping like a baby.
100%. Yeah, this is the ADP now is justified. Every camp report, and I know sometimes they get over the top. I don't think it's hyperbole. He is as advertised, and he's with a good quarterback. And I talk about this all the time. Baker Mayfield was not made by Liam Cohen. He had already had 3 26-plus touchdown seasons on his resume. Baker Mayfield's a decent or a good quarterback. And so, yes, this is going to be a pairing that's going to work. Tampa's going to have to score points, too. The defense, they talk about adding some corners. This is not a
great point.
Yeah,
great point.
They're going to score. So now, Trey Benson, Arizona Cardinals. James Conner signed a new deal last year, but the talk from even Conner is that Benson and Conner are going to get a lot of work. What are your thoughts on Benson about running back 40 in average drafts?
Yeah, he's going outside the top 125 picks right now. So Trey Benson obviously is one of these guys that's like a free square running back pick if you want to take him, in the double-digit rounds. And I do think that he's got standalone value because I think Arizona would be absolutely insane to not run at least Trey Benson out there at least 40% of the time. We're talking about an older running back in James Conner. He's 30 years old, and somehow, some way, Jim, I have been saying this for so long now. But the running back injuries or the lack thereof last year was insane. The amount of players who stayed healthy all year long with a history of injuries and not getting injured last year was absolutely insane. Everyone who went, late round running back got burned. Everyone, every single person, right? So because none of these handcuffs came to fruition, none.
Not one.
So,
nope, not at all.
But I think this year it comes back to the mean. I think guys are going to get hurt. I think guys are going to be more inefficient. I think there's going to be a lot of chaos in running back rooms all across the NFL. And I am drafting that way. I am really taking a stab at a lot of these, later round running backs. I like Blake Corum too. You have to pay attention to Ollie Gordon there in Miami. But Trey Benson is somebody that I think's got standalone value. I don't think he needs James Conner to miss time, but I tell you what, James Conner's probably going to miss some time. Somehow, some way, Jim, at 29 years old, he set a career high in games played and touches last year. Had over 300 touches, and I cannot see that holding up. This is the same player that in his 2 previous years missed 4 games each. I think that's a very fair projection for him in 2025 to miss another 4 games. I think Trey Benson, I think you're going to get some standalone value. And in those 4 games where if it ends up being 4 games that James Conner ends up missing, Trey Benson could potentially give you, top 15 running back upside.
James, when you're talking about running back injuries for last year, my premise this offseason has been this. Watch all the games, and I tried to figure out what the conclusion was. And it's like most teams are playing a 4-2-5 defense, only 2 linebackers on the field. Used to be a lot more 3 linebackers, 4 linebackers. So now you have 4 down linemen most of the time, 2 linebackers, 6 run defenders. Well, with 5 offensive linemen and a tight end, you can get a hat on all of them. There are far fewer defensive free runners than there ever have been in the past. So the running backs, if you watch those games this year, running backs were not taking kill shots because there weren't enough defenders to do that. If there's from a safety, so what, or a corner, who cares? That's not a problem. But the other thing was that the linebackers have they've gone from like in the mid 240s in weight about 15, 20 years ago. They're down to 230 on average. So these guys are built to defend the pass. They're lighter and faster for them. So not only are these linebackers not getting free shots on running backs, they're not these big old school guided missiles. So I really contend that running backs are going to hold up a little better than they have because the league has changed. We could take all those old tired theories of the rule of 375. That's back in the day when there were like meat grinder linebackers out there just crushing running backs.
Brian Urlacher's out there just dropping hammers on guys.
Yes, and Ray Lewis, but this league is not that. So we'll see how that shakes out. But I know I like that you brought up the idea of durability with running backs last year, and that's why I'm going back to buying him. I don't think it was an anomaly. Anyway, is there something you wish your fantasy league had or features that are missing from your current league? Bonus scoring, custom schedules or playoffs, deeper team settings? Look no further. We've got you covered with our friends at Fantrax. Fantrax is the most customizable fantasy platform in the industry, offering the greatest fantasy experience for your dynasty, keeper, redraft, and best ball leagues. Fantrax even offers college football fantasy leagues. Create or join a fantasy commissioner league, invite your friends, and dominate your draft this season. Fantrax is the top dynasty fantasy football platform in the industry. Fantrax is running a special promotion you don't want to miss. Sign up for free at fantrax.com/RotoWire today to enter for your chance to win a signed Jamar Chase jersey. Simply create a new league or bring over your existing league for more chances to win. Again, you go to fantrax.com/RotoWire. Sign up today. Fantrax, the home of fantasy sports. James, we're going to go through some mock drafting here, and I know you've used our mock draft tool. We've used it on this show. While I bring that onto the screen, you want to tell viewers a little bit about the mock draft tool as you've known it at RotoWire?
I love the mock draft tool because you can customize, your draft strategy. You can be more aggressive with it. You could be more conservative. I mean, you could take, stabs at guys that you input guys that you want to target in your draft. You input guys that you don't want to target in your draft, and RotoWire's app will spit out a new algorithm for you, regardless of what position you take as well. So no, this is, and oh, by the way, another really cool feature of the app too, y'all, is that if you have it as a companion app to your regular draft, you can input your draft results into RotoWire's mock draft simulator, and it will do the same thing. It'll spit out all the guys that are, could potentially be in that range for you, man. And you know what I love about the simulator too is we know that when you do drafts, Jim, you're always thinking about stretching picks. Right, you got to stretch picks. I mean, unless you're on the tail end of the draft, right? But anywhere between the 3 and 10 hole, you're thinking about, okay, can I stretch my pick? Can I stretch my pick? Man, RotoWire's got that thing, that feature in their mock draft simulator where it says, okay, this guy's got an 85% chance of being taken before your next pick, or a 15% chance of being taken before your next pick, and it runs those numbers for you, man. Honestly, that part of it alone, I thought was really, really interesting, and people should definitely go check it out.
Yeah, as you mentioned, that last feature, the top of your screen, you'd likely gone before your next pick. Derrick Henry, 96%. Drake London, 53%. So it lets you know if you can play chicken. Like, if you really want Drake London, well, you might be like, you know what? I want him, but I could maybe get 2 players I really like and play chicken. But you couldn't really do that with Malik Neighbors because you know there's an 86% chance you're not going to see him again. So that's a great call on that. So I put us in a spot in this draft, James, that's a lot of people's frustration zone. Pick 7. The top 6 picks off the board were as would normally be. Chase, Jefferson, Lamb are off. Barkley, Gibbs, and Bijan Robinson are off the board. We're going to say this is a 12-team league, not a tournament we're in, because when we're tournament, we're talking a little bit different. So if we are looking at this point, James, you're seeing that you've got the suggested, let's just go to receivers. Receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors. Obviously, we're not going to go Tyreek Hill here. Puka Nacua, Brian Thomas, Drake London, Nico Collins. If you were looking running back, you're looking at Derrick Henry, Devon Etienne, who might have that calf injury, Ashton Genty, McCaffrey. What are you thinking you'd like to do with this 7th pick, which, again, is just a weird spot to be this year?
It's such a weird spot because a lot of the elite guys are off the board, you know, and now you're taking a look at guys that have some red flags. Is Amon-Ra St. Brown's got no Ben Johnson. What does that end up looking like? Derrick Henry, curse of 370, just coming off a huge workload, and he's an aging running back. That looks a little bit dicey. Malik Neighbors is dealing with. I mean, shoot, what's he not dealing with right now? He's got like 5 injuries. That he's dealing with.
He's not dealing with Micah Parsons. We'll give him that. Nobody's dealing with him.
Right, that's right. Puka Nacua, for example, I'd love to take Puka Nacua here, except for the fact that Matt Stafford has a herniated disc in his back. I do not want. I don't want to take with a top 7 pick a wide receiver that's got Jimmy Garoppolo or Stenson Bennett throwing him the football. Like, that's not. I don't want that. Nobody should want that. So no, the 7 hole is one of the most difficult picks, I think, in the draft this year. If we're going just pure upside, I do think that, hey, let's run this back here with Derrick Henry. Let's hope he stays healthy, and just kind of go from there. I think other potential picks right here too might be Drake London or Malik Neighbors, just depending on how healthy you think he is.
And I'm with you on that. London to be a nice pick, but the draft assistant tells us we have a 53% chance of fall. So we could play a little chicken. We might not get him, but there's a chance we do.
Right.
And that's it. And the beauty of Henry, like you said, if you ever want a safe player, 2021, he broke his foot. Not his fault. He never misses time. So, yeah, we're going to click on Derrick Henry, the big dog, and then we go from there. And let's see who's left on the board for us. And London did go. So we're in the 2nd round, and we're obviously not going to look at quarterback. You're like me. You're not going to look at quarterback and play down for a little while, right?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
remember, we're going to have the suggested players available by position. The best by position RotoWire has. Targets, those are the ones I had set for myself. Likely gone before next pick. JSN, 52%. To play chicken with him. We don't want him here anyway. Highest upside and safest player. So RotoWire has all that for you. But James, we're going to look through this with you right now. We're going to look at the running back pool. You got Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Taylor, Bucky Irving, Kyron Williams, Chase Brown, who's been really steaming up draft boards. Wide receivers, you got Tyreek, A.J. Brown, Ladd McConkey, Terry McLaurin, Devontae Adams. A lot of good choices here. Which way would you like to go with this?
Well, I just don't know how you get away from A.J. Brown, right? And I know it's not a huge, high-volume passing attack in Philadelphia, but it is hyper-efficient. And there was a point in time, too, where A.J. Brown was so dang productive, he was actually threatening 2,000 receiving yards through 10 games as well. This is not last year, but the year before, but the year prior. So the volume and the production can certainly be there, and he's just an elite talent. Let's just bet on talent. You know what I mean? Like, let's just bet on talent to shine through. I would love to take it. I mean, you go through two rounds of your draft and you've got Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown. I think you're feeling pretty good.
James, even as late as last year, I was making the case. I go, all right, you got Jamar Chase, you got Justin Jefferson. At the time, you got Tyreek Hill before last year, and you had A.J. Brown. I said, they're all the best receiver in the league. They just do it differently. If they were all in different roles, any of them, like if A.J. Brown ever had that 170 targets, good Lord, what the man could do with those, right? So one last thing I'm going to add about why I love A.J. Brown. You brought up the great points. Philly had an easy schedule last year. Most games, they were leading in the fourth quarter, and they just shut off their passing attack. This year, the schedule is significantly more difficult. There could be more games when Philly is throwing late, and that would definitely benefit A.J. Brown. I just want to add that in there as well. All right, so we'll click on A.J. Brown, and then you always can go back on the top left as the picks come through, and you can go to see rosters, and you can see your team configuration. So you got Derrick Henry, the Week 7 bye, and you have A.J. Brown with the Week 9 bye, so very clear there. And now we're going to go to the third round, James, and we're still going to pound receiver and running back, correct?
Yeah, I would think so. Again, if there's somebody at the tight end spot, like if Trey McBride falls to me here, maybe.
Right, and he went about 6 picks earlier, but you would be right. If he fell here, you're right. If he goes that deep into the third round, at that point you take the value, right?
Right, exactly. This is again, we're getting back to it. The 7th spot is really difficult, man. While we like the second round, the third round again gets pretty dicey here. I like James Cook, I like Breece Hall. These are two players that I'm willing to draft. It's just they come with a lot of question marks,
Right.
Will the Jets commit to Breece Hall, or are they looking to make this a true 50-50 backfield with Braylon Allen? If that's the case, Breece Hall here doesn't make that much sense.
No.
Right. So I don't know. To me, it's a very, very difficult proposition. In the wide receiver room, I wish I could go wide receiver here, Jim. But is there anyone in this grouping here that you're saying I got to go pick up?
James, I normally fade him in my drafts, but T. Higgins is in the middle of the third round here. Yeah. He's going with Adams and Harris. I think I don't like it earlier in the summer when Higgins is the tight end 12, but now we're looking wide receiver. Now we're looking like wide receiver 16. That's a different price. That's a different category. And he misses time. But from that said, it has that full, the easy full season schedule. They're going to have to throw because that defense is going to be brutal. I haven't taken Higgins in one draft. Would you take him here?
I think so. And again, I really want to load up on wide receivers early and premium wide receivers early if I can, because again, I do think that there's a lot of interesting handcuff running backs that you could take later in the draft.
So we're going to click on T. Higgins. We're going to go to the fourth round. While that's queuing up, we'll see again, we have Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, T.J. Higgins. That's a very nice base to start from the 7th spot, which again is not the most favorable of spots. All right, we get to the 4th round, James. George Kittle's off the board, so the top 3 tight ends are gone. We're not shopping quarterback early, but the big 5 with Hurts having gone, big 5 are gone. Running backs, you got James Conner. Now, one thing you'll notice when we get to this point, if we have any running backs with bye week issues, it will tell you on the draft assistant here, in the mock draft, it'll tell you. But right now, I don't see any conflicts, so it didn't mention them. But the notes are in real time. They're not the same every time the player comes up. It depends on your team situation. Again, a beauty of the RotoWire site. So Connor, Omarion Hampton, Chuba Hubbard, Travion Henderson, Pollard, Ken Walker. At wide receiver, you have Devontae, DK, DJ Moore, Sutton, Pickens. Which position are you thinking to look at, James?
Well, look, I am absolutely in love with the thought of Kenneth Walker running in this Kubiak run scheme there in Seattle. And at this point, I just don't know if I can pass on him. I think that he's, again, poised to have a particularly great season. If he can stay healthy, if this guy can put 15 games in the books, I feel confident in saying that he will finish as a top 7 or 8 running back in the NFL. I think he's got upside for even more, honestly. I really love the run scheme that they're going to employ there in Seattle. And I think Kenneth Walker, who I also charted as well, has shown a lot of traits, Jim, that would suggest to me that if he can stay healthy, he will be an elite running back in the NFL.
Now, James, if you look at the assistant here, matches our top team need running back, easy full season schedule, peak age range for a running back says here he's 24.
Right.
Good year last year, easy playoff schedule, easy early season schedule. So yeah, remember the assistant gives you a lot of good options to look at for your players. We'll click on Kenneth Walker, and we got time to go for another. Let's go. We'll go with one more pick here, and then we'll go from there. So looking at our roster before we go on, we have Henry and Walker, AJ Brown and Higgins,
Really
and
balanced.
Yes, very balanced, James. So fifth round, are you like me and you're looking either running back or receiver here?
Oh, for sure. Again, I just think that there's so many interesting late round quarterback options that I'm not even thinking about quarterback until we get to like round 12. I mean, that's how late in the draft that I am looking at quarterback, honestly. So I'm down to load up over and over and over again on wide receivers and running backs for sure.
Now, we have some really nice options at receiver. George Pickens in that Dallas office. Devontae Smith.
I know.
James, he missed games last year, and everybody held it against him. He normally doesn't miss much time. His pace was like 88 catches, 1,050 yards, and like 10 touchdowns. His pace was what it was the year prior, but everybody's kind of writing him off. Jerry Jeudy. Let me go to the receiver page. You see what I'm saying here? Jerry Jeudy, Calvin Ridley, Jalen Waddle, if you're buying back in that. Of this group, which receiver would you like and why?
I think Pickens for the touchdown upside is probably my choice here. If not, actually, to be honest with you, I would take Devontae Smith if we didn't already take A.J. Brown. Would like to maximize that pick right there too. But so George Pickens I just feel as if Calvin Ridley may put together a really good season. I think he's a lock for 1,100 yards this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he pushes 12 or 1,300 yards if everything goes right in Tennessee. But I do like the George Pickens upside. He's the clear number 2 in Dallas, and it is by far a more healthy passing environment in Dallas than it is in Tennessee.
I will add one thing. Everybody should remember back just about 4-ish years ago, Michael Gallup was the last time that Dak had a vertical outside receiver he could throw to. And Gallup was good, but he wasn't Superman. He got 1,100 yards that season.
Amazing. George
Pickens is a freak of nature in the best possible way. And Dak, even with last year being a half season and not playing well, Dak over the last 2 years has been the third most efficient downfield passer. Dak, when he sees one-on-one, and it'll happen a lot because CD Lamb is going to draw that coverage, it is going to be a lot of go balls, and that duo is perfectly partnered to do that together. James, I'm going to put a question up here, and why don't you read that one if I shut the screen? Up. Because Randy has a question. It's about Kenneth Walker, and I want you to address that one, okay?
Okay, yeah. So the bottom line is I have a mentality of I don't want to back up my own running backs because I want to, if chaos reigns, I want to have, again, multiple stabs at different backfields here. Basically, if you draft the handcuff to your own guy, you're really only getting one backfield. But what happens if you draft the handcuff to a different team? Now you potentially have the upside anyways of having 2 starting running backs on 2 different teams, right? So that's the upside value of it. Obviously, there's a lot more downside risk involved with that strategy as well. But that's kind of sort of the mentality that I have. And can I also say this about Charbonnet?
Yes.
I know that he has looked decent in the preseason. But again, I charted Walker, I charted Charbonnet, and to me, Charbonnet is such a straightforward player. I just don't see how he's going to do well in an outside zone run scheme. I really don't understand it. And to be honest with you, I'm a little confused by Seattle's depth chart in the running back room. They've got a lot of guys that are straight line players. Like George Holani is a straight line player. These are not guys that are built to run outside zone. Can they do it? This was the crazy thing. Last year, the way they used Charbonnet was they ran him on outside zone, but they had a fullback lead, Jim. And basically they just said, okay, run to the outside in a straight line, follow your fullback, and hit that hole. They didn't ask Charbonnet to make any reads at all. They literally were like, okay, we're going to run outside zone, but you're going to have a fullback lead or a tight end puller and just follow that guy. So it was gap principles in a zone run scheme that Charbonnet took advantage of. So that's what made it really weird. I don't think that Kubiak's going to run that. I think Kubiak's going to run what his dad ran, which is just straight up outside zone, which is you got to get to the outside. And if a cutback lane opens up, you got to take that cutback lane. So I don't know. It's possible they use that pulling, tight end fullback lead scheme there in Seattle again. I doubt it though.
Love that call. Now, if you want to access that mock draft simulator, the articles at RotoWire, the rankings, we have got you set up, and we can get you a 15% discount. Join the team. You go to rotowire.com, you pick out that subscription, and you use the code YouTube15 to check out. Again, love to have you part of the RotoWire team. We want to thank our sponsor, the Circa Million and Circa Survivor Contest, and thanks to everyone for listening. Come back next week for another edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast.